Well, welcome to another ICAC Cotton Connects interview. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Mark Jarvis, who's the Managing Director of WTIN. And we're going to be talking about a really important subject moving forward, which is around innovation. Before I start, Mark, perhaps you'd like to tell us a little bit more about WTIN.
Sure. Well, hello, Kai. It's good to see you again. And WTIN, we are an information provider to the textile and apparel industry worldwide, providing information through our online resource, WTIN.com, but also through events which we organize, and also journals that we still publish. We still publish 7 journals, one of them dating back to 1880. We cover all aspects of both the manufacturing process, the materials from the raw materials through to finished product, and also the implications on business strategy, particularly on innovation around those two particular areas. Based in the UK, but with resources in a number of countries and indeed a network of content contributors from about 50 countries worldwide.
So as I said, today Mark and I are going to be talking about innovation. It was really interesting to see what WTIN are doing in that field, especially around your ideas for a virtual trade show, Mark, and I really love that idea. So when are you going to hold it, and what made you decide to do a virtual trade show?
Well, yes, good question. Well, we decided to do it in March, just a little over 2 months ago. And why we decided? Well, 2 things. The COVID crisis was seeing a number of the live exhibitions being cancelled. And it was towards the end of March, the last of the main exhibitions that we have contracts with that was cancelled. And we were also having to cancel our own conferences. So we were seeing a significant impact on our revenues. But what we also saw was a gap in the market where companies didn't have the live exhibitions anymore by way of being able to introduce their new products. So we thought, well, let's move into that space. We've got the skills. We've got the resources, we know the industry. Let's create a virtual trade show that satisfies the need in 2020 for those companies who wish to exhibit.
Yeah, it's interesting about the need, because there definitely is a need. But it's, when you talk about a virtual trade show, you think, how the hell is that going to work? A virtual conference, you can understand because everyone is doing Zoom now. But a virtual trade show, there's a lot of complexities. So when you were thinking of, well, just give us some ideas of the pros and cons and the complexities of having a virtual trade show compared to a virtual Zoom conference, say.
Sure. Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. A live exhibition translated into a virtual trade show is possibly equally complex. Live exhibitions are no longer just a number of company booths organized into halls. Live exhibitions have become events that include conferences, seminars, and other activities, because that's what the visitors demand. They demand more information from these events. And so with the virtual trade show, you need to give consideration to that visitor experience, whilst also ensuring that you can deliver on what the exhibitor expectations are. So, you know, for visitors, they need to have opportunities to go and look at the new products that are going to be exhibited, but they also want to learn, and they can learn from video presentations, they can learn from roundtable discussions, which we're thinking we'll do live. They can learn from attending conferences. So there's lots of areas in which you have to give due consideration, and it's a complex exercise, but one where WTIN is particularly well placed. We're a content business. So we've taken on the challenge, and I believe that we will deliver something this year that the industry needs.
So how do you think though? What sectors do you think are going to participate in this conference, and how are they going to? How's that hall going to be laid out? So that's going to help the experience for somebody coming along to that conference.
Okay, well, I think it's. I mean, firstly, the way we're organising the exhibition part, the hall part of the virtual trade show, is we're organising it into two streams. There are two fundamental streams within the industry. One is technology and machinery that drive the process, and the other is materials from raw fibres through to finished product. So the organisation is fundamentally under those two streams. And then, of course, within the textile manufacturing process, there are a number of stages, whether that be spinning, whether that be weaving, whether that be finishing, etc., in which companies can select the category into which they fit, and the same on materials. Whilst we don't seek to represent visually the physical nature of an actual hall, we certainly intend to organise the exhibitors into a structure that visitors are familiar with.
So does that mean you'd you'd click on a map and then you're in that room and then you'd get the content of that room? Is that how it would work?
Not quite, no. I think what we've decided here is to take the parts of an exhibition that work and are of value to the visitor, a live exhibition, and to get rid of the bits that are, to be perfectly honest, a waste of time or effort. So, we're not going to have 3D avatars of yourself walking around a 3D rendered exhibition hall. That's just recreating what actually in a live exhibition is not a particularly useful experience. No, we want people to get directly to where they want to be. So there'll be some elements that perhaps are familiar from a live exhibition, but there are other elements that will be driven by the technology and the fact that we're on an online platform.
Okay, so it will be live effectively. Really?
The event will be live, and if you wish, in fact, in that it's accessible 24 hours a day. There will be times during the event when there will be live events taking place, whether that be a round table or perhaps a special presentation by an exhibitor. So it's important to, we believe, to have that element within the event in order to bring visitors back on specific occasions.
One of the, we're looking at holding conferences later on in the year as well. One of the complexities that we're trying to grapple with at the moment is language, especially when we normally would have to translate in the 5 UN languages. How do we do that? How do you do simultaneous translations when you're doing something online? Have you thought about that? I'm asking you for help.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can give you a solution for simultaneous translation online, although there may be one. But we're currently running a virtual conference, and what the approach that we've taken is that it's a 25 speakers making 30-minute presentations. It's a rich source of information, but they've all been pre-recorded for practical reasons, as well as being able then to make them available over a period for the delegates. But once you've pre-recorded a presentation, it's a relatively quick process to have that presentation subtitled and subtitled in different languages. So that's the approach we're taking for the video element of, for example, a virtual conference. And of course, on a website, which would be the main platform for the virtual trade show, you have those translation tools that are now, readily available and relatively straightforward to implement. So certainly for our virtual trade show, it will be available in all the important languages for the industry.
And I suppose for a lot of companies, the important thing is to be able to display their services or their goods through a trade booth. How are you going to do that? What's their trade booth going to look like?
Yeah, well, like a normal exhibition, the booths will all look very different. So there will be a variety available from us that will be 3D rendered in a similar fashion to a booth at a live exhibition. But there'll also be some that will be more of a LinkedIn style page. So rather than go for the sort of the 3D representation of a booth, just go for putting that information in front of the visitor, depending on what that exhibitor wants to do. And also from some early conversations that we've had, some exhibitors want to build their own booths. So the space, the real estate, if you like, within the exhibition would be purchased, and the exhibitor would provide us with their virtual booth, which we would then place in the space within the virtual trade show. So in some ways, very similar to a live exhibition now.
So will it be similar in that one of the attractions that for me as a participant in a trade show is going around and getting all the freebies? So does that mean then that I just have to put in my email and they'll send me the freebies, so I don't have to have a whole suitcase packed full of freebies trying to get home back to America?
It'll certainly be a lot easier than that. We thought of that, actually. We're going to, well, two features, actually. Firstly, the one you're describing, the virtual showback. As you go around from booth to booth, you can certainly view PDF files of a brochure, but you can also click on a little icon that will put it into your virtual showback for you to then, at the end of the event or when you finish visiting all the booths, you can download in one zip file. So that's a neat little and easy feature to include that replicates what you do, what we all do at a trade show. But one of the other things that we're going to be implementing is a visitor incentive scheme. This I find really quite interesting. So we want to encourage visitors to find the real nuggets of content that are within the trade show. Now that's the video content in the conferences or in the seminars or the round tables, but it's also the really interesting content, a new product perhaps, within an exhibitor booth. And by going around and discovering those, and by that I mean looking at those, then the visitor collects points, and those points will be exchanged by the visitor into, maybe a little goodie from a particular company, maybe a free 3-month subscription to WTIN.com. But I think in seeking to try and offer something for the visitors, we do that quite nicely with those two features.
But the trade booths themselves, they normally work with an interaction with the delegate who's asking questions. So that can't happen in real time. So how is that going to happen? Because that's the value, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So well, we're going to do that in two ways. So firstly, perhaps the more basic one is having a chat function on the booth, and that will work itself in two ways. It'll either be live, there'll be someone from the exhibitor at their computer taking those chat inquiries as and when they happen, perfectly normal sort of operational methodology there, or there may be some sort of chat robot type functionality built in for when they're not online, because of course some companies will maybe only have an office in one region, and so 2/3 of the day they're probably going to be offline. So we can handle those sorts of immediate inquiries through chat, but there'll also be a video meeting functionality using something like this platform, something like Zoom, where probably the visitor would pre-arrange or request a meeting with the exhibitor, and that would be scheduled, and that would then take place. Again, though, within the context of the virtual trade show. So you're absolutely right in asking that question. You know, interaction is important. Whilst the visitor and the exhibitor can't shake hands like they would in a normal live exhibition, they can, as we've all learned in the last 2 or 3 months, communicate very, very effectively via these video conference meetings.
Yeah, I could see a downside, Mark, which is that they won't be able to buy me a beer. So perhaps I'll need to get points in my bag for beers later on.
Well, when I have more detail, one of our exhibitors has already asked if they can run a live event where they will pre-supply a bottle of beer to certain registered visitors for them to have a networking live event, including the real beer.
That's brilliant.
I know.
What about if you want to network with other delegates at the conference? How will that work?
Yeah, probably that's going to be facilitated through the areas like the seminar area, the conference area, the roundtable area. There'll be opportunities there for the visitors who are interested in those common themes that they're looking at to connect and to communicate as well.
Yeah, one of the things I find amazing now is in this COVID-19 era is how we are taking things that are already happening and bringing them together to produce a better product, or using that to work in a very different way. And a good example is this Zoom that we're on now. Before, we would have only used Zoom for our whatever it is, board meetings or whatever, and now we're doing it all the time. And sometimes you can just sit there and think, why didn't we do this before? It's almost obvious, but we've not had the thought to apply it in a different way.
I think a lot of us are thinking that. Yeah, I think we've all learned a lot in the last 2 or 3 months, and the new normal won't be quite as it was before. And I think you'll see, you know, not just businesses, but the way that we work with customers and partners becoming more of a hybrid combination of face-to-face and online. I don't think for the foreseeable future we're going to go back to spending 5 days a week, 9 till 5 in the office, or always traveling to meet a customer or a partner, when we've realized that we can facilitate some of this online.
Yeah, and for me, I'm paying great interest because we want to hold our own online conference, not a trade show, not as ambitious as you, but I'm sure that we'll learn quite a lot from when you hold your event. So when is the event? When's it going to happen?
Sure, yeah, 15th to the 30th of October. I think that it was, for us, we decided that it was not sensible to run a virtual trade show for just a few days, like a live exhibition, because we don't expect visitors to walk, if you like, virtually around our exhibition for a whole day. That's just not how any of us operate when we're online. So it needs to be something that the visitor can come back to over a period of time to find the things that they need to find and to attend the round tables or the conferences. But it can't be too long that the exhibitors lose interest and it just becomes a massive chore. So, you know, we've decided on effectively 2 full working weeks, and we'll see how that goes. But I think the logic to me sounds about right. The judge will be the visitors and the exhibitors come October.
That's a really interesting point. I wouldn't have thought of that. But the immediate advantage I can see on that is you're not going to get this conflict that you normally get at a conference where there are two sessions that you want to go to at the same time. With your version, you can dip in and dip out as you wish, but make sure you get everything you want.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that I would finish by saying that innovation in your thinking around these events, I think, is absolutely key. And really spending time just putting yourself in the shoes of the visitor or the exhibitor or the delegate to a conference and just working out what they would want it to be. Because I'm not saying it's easy to technically build a platform for something like this, but there's a lot of fantastic technology readily available, like you said, with Zoom, that can just be utilized to make something work. The trick is making sure it works in the way that people want to interact with it online, and that you make sure that it is rich in content. That is the key thing. If it was just a series of virtual booths, it's not going to be what it needs to be. Those are at the heart of the event, but you need to have that other content there to bring the visitors in for the first time and bring them back on numerous occasions afterwards.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how video conferencing evolves, because this is almost becoming the new normal, and we've already seen some innovations in Zoom, for example. So I could change my background behind me, or I could soften my face to make myself look slimmer, et cetera, et cetera. And all that's just happened in the last month or two. So what's going to happen in the next 3 or 4 months?
Yeah, we've learned a lot, and all of it's centered around innovation.
Yeah.